video. This is not the video that I thought I was gonna make today. What I thought I was gonna make today was an updated GoPro accessories video, kind of all the new GoPro toys that I've been playing with, that I've kind of kept in my bag, things that have passed the test and I'm actually keeping and using on the regular. That was the original idea for today's video, but you guys lit me up in that Hero 10 video about the GoPro Hero 10 overheating and if I saw any overheating issues in my testing. Because some reviewers did. Some people saw that this thing overheated on them at the 5.3K 60 and 4K 120 after filming for like 20-25 minutes with it. Now, I don't film for that period of time hardly ever, and I certainly didn't in my testing. My testing and pretty much in all of my use cases with the GoPro, I film for like 2-3 minutes at a time, or maybe 5-10 minutes max. But if this thing does overheat at 20 minutes, then we should know. So it's a very worthy test, something that needs to be figured out. Here's the Hero 10, and just to make this test, you know, more scientific, we have the Hero 9 to compare it against. We also have the Hero 8. I have the Insta360 1R with the 1-inch mod on there, so we can do 5.3K, and I have the DJI Osmo Action. But before we even do this test, small action cameras are not good at dissipating heat. All cameras are trying to solve that issue of filming at super high resolutions, filming at high frame rates, doing that much processing power. It makes a lot of heat. So you have to try to figure out how to get rid of that heat, and more surface area helps you get rid of it. So the smaller the camera, the harder that is to do. In general, all action cameras struggle with this issue. And then I've also got one of these little infrared thermometers. So after each test, I'm gonna make sure that they get back down to that same temperature before we test them again and we roast their batteries again. Oh, and I'm gonna switch out the battery. So each time I'll have a fresh battery. They all have the same SD cards in there, all have 100% battery. Everything in my mind is, I mean, this isn't like a scientific test, but it's close, or it's a decent test. A decent scientific test is what today is. And if you like today's video, make sure you hit that like button. That helps a ton. And a massive thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Cuts Clothing. And big news, not only has Cuts come on as like, you know, sponsoring a few videos here and there, they've come on now as a channel sponsor. They sent me a mug to celebrate their sponsorship, which I appreciate more than they could possibly know. Brands like that make videos like this possible. If you guys watched my whole video on how YouTubers make money, it's not a lot from the view side of things. So brands coming on to support channels like mine, that's what makes videos like this possible. So if you're stoked on this video, thank Cuts. Their support it's amazing. But what might be more amazing is how much my wife loves their shirt. I love wearing their shirts, but my wife, she likes me wearing them more than I even like wearing them. Like, she compliments me on them all the time. We were on the plane the other day, flying home from Ohio. She looks over me and she goes, "Babe, you should just always wear those shirts." So if you want my wife to think that you look great, also, first link in the description, pick yourself up some Cuts clothing. Again, a massive thank you to them. And yeah, apparently for my wife to like you, all it takes is a good looking shirt. Okay, on to the test today. The very first test that we're gonna do is all of these cameras fully maxed out, like the highest marketed resolution and frame rate. So that sounds a little unfair, but again, this is how they're selling us these cameras, so that's where we're gonna test them. So we're gonna set them all up, just run them until they all die, and we'll see how long they go. I'll then use this to make sure they are all back to room temperature, and then we'll go to the next test. Now, test number 2 is going to be the highest common denominator between them all. So 4K 60 over here, we're gonna do 4K 60 on all the cameras. So that'll be like the most even playing field kind of thing. Like, how do all these cameras do at the exact same frame rate, the exact same resolution? How do they heat or overheat or not overheat? And then the final test will be outdoors. Again, we're gonna pump them to their highest resolution, and I'm gonna do them at 30 frames a second. And the reason I chose 30 frames a second is because that's kind of, I would say that's the frame rate that most people are shooting in, but we're gonna put all the cameras up to their highest resolution to do it in. Now, that test is going to be brutal. I don't see any of these cameras making it through it even close to 20 minutes. All right, this is gonna take a little while, so I will go do the tests, and then we will come back here, we'll review the results, and we'll see which of these did best, or which of them were within an acceptable range. Because again, they're all gonna overheat, it's gonna happen, but at what point do they overheat? Let's find out. right, it is now 3 days later. I have been testing the crap out of this camera because after my first 3 tests, it didn't go well. But if there was ever a video where I would encourage you to watch to the entire, just watch this whole thing, okay? Trust me, it's worth it. Watch the whole thing. Because I did the initial tests, but then I did some more tests. There's a twist. There's a twist at the end of this or later on in the video that you're gonna wanna see. Also though, this took forever. Hit that like button. Thank you. Okay, up first for the 3 tests that we talked about. The first was the maximum resolution and maximum frame rate. Again, kind of unfair, because again, these 2 guys were shooting at 4K 60 over here at 4K 30 and 5K 30, but this guy was at 5.3K 60. Room temperature in here was 82 degrees, and the Hero 8 in 4K 60 made it 26 minutes and 42 seconds. The Hero 9 made it 31 minutes, which I thought I was gonna end the test at 30 minutes, but then I was inside grabbing something, so it went to 31 and then it stopped at 31. And the GoPro Hero 10 at 5.3K 60, it made it 12 minutes and 46 seconds. Not looking good, but again, watch the whole video. Then as for the Osmo Action and the Insta360 1R, neither of these died after about 32 minutes. I was planning on stopping the test at 30 minutes. I went to 32 minutes. Both of these made it 32 minutes. The DJI at the end, when it gets super, super hot, it won't let you turn on the LCD screens. So it will keep recording, but you can't see what you're recording when the temperature gets super hot. And then this guy, same thing. The screen didn't want to come back on for me, but it was still recording at 32 minutes. All right, next up was the highest common denominator test, where we did all cameras at 4K 60 because that's the best that these cameras can do, and these 3 I just put at 4K 60 so we have just an even run across the board. And for that test, the Hero 8 made it all the way to the 30-minute mark. I let it run to like 33 minutes at that point, but it did not die. The Hero 9 made it to 22 minutes and 55 seconds, which lets me know that resolution probably doesn't matter as much, but frame rate is really what's heating up the cameras the most, because at 5K 30, this lasted longer than at 4K 60. And then the Hero 10 at 4K 60 made it 16 minutes and 56 seconds. So it actually did a little bit better, because at 5.3K 60, it went 12 minutes, 46 seconds, and at 4K 60, it made it to 16 minutes, 56 seconds before shutting off. And by the way, it's not like these cameras are shutting off because they can't work anymore. They're shutting off because of the software built into them that's preventing them from damaging themselves. So there's software built into the cameras to say, turn off, don't break the components inside, please. Then the last of the 3 tests that we talked about was it was just a ridiculous test. I took these cameras outside. It was 96 degrees, but you'll see in the shot, the thermometer that's in the shot that's actually in the direct sunlight also is pinned. It's well beyond 120 degrees, pinned somewhere like around 140 degrees. So these cameras, they were getting roasted, like don't do this at home. For sure, do not do this with your personal cameras. That's what I'm here for. And the results of that test is the Hero 8 at 4K 30 made it 16 minutes and 33 seconds. Very impressive for how dang hot it was. The Hero 9 at 5K 30 made it to 13 minutes and 51 seconds. Still very impressive. And the Hero 10 at 5K 30 made it 9 minutes and 52 seconds. Not super impressive, but again, under those conditions, kind of impressive. Same thing though, in that test, neither of these cameras shut off at all. And this guy, same thing, wouldn't let me use the LCD screen anymore. And this guy wouldn't let me use the LCD screen. And then when I did stop the recording, it took like 3 or 4 minutes to save the file. So I think things were just really hot in both cameras. But after those 3 tests, I really sat there going, overheating might be a real thing on the Hero 10. Like, this might actually be a problem. So I did a few more tests in a much more controlled environment. I did it in my kitchen because our house stays at 75 degrees pretty much at all times. So I took this guy in there. I just wanted to see, let's just run this thing. And I ran it a few different times, got an average, and the averages of this guy in 75-degree weather, Hero 10 at 5.3K, 30 frames a second, 24 minutes, 48 seconds before it overheated. Again though, watch this whole video. Don't stop here. And then at 5K 60, 15 minutes flat. Lastly, at 4K, 120 frames a second. Again, it seems like frame rate is the key factor in creating a lot more heat. 13 minutes and 28 seconds, 4K 120. So again, still not great. So with all of this information, I reached out to GoPro. Just if they had a comment, if they had any advice for me to get better timing out of this thing before it overheated. And they said a few things. The first thing they said, number one, was people are testing it wrong. And one of the ways they're testing it wrong is they are putting it on a flat surface. And by doing so, one, you are folding the legs in, which covers these holes in the bottom, which are microphones, but also dissipate a lot of heat at the bottom. But also you're reducing the amount of airflow that can actually get under the camera, which, yeah, that is how I tested the camera in all my tests. And then number two, they said that people are keeping Hypersmooth turned on to either standard or boost, and they're doing it indoors where there's no airflow. And in a real world situation, if you have Hypersmooth on, it's because you're mountain biking, you're outside, you're doing something, you're moving around, and a lot of air is moving around the GoPro. So that is actually gonna help dissipate heat a lot. And yeah, in almost all my tests, it was sitting on my desk with very little airflow in here. But number three, they said, and this kind of harkens back to the beginning of this video, they said in their research, from all the data that they get from, users' files, over 75% of all GoPro clips ever recorded are under 1 minute and 10 seconds. It's a fair point. Again, during my 2 weeks of testing this thing before that initial video, the longest video that I filmed, I finally went back and looked through my files, the longest video I filmed was 5 minutes and 30 seconds in my testing. So that's why I initially never even came close to these numbers, and why a lot of people that are testing this thing and they're putting it in their office on a flat surface with not a lot of airflow, they're getting reduced numbers. So to see what more of a real world situation would look like, I took the GoPro Hero 10, I put it on a mount back in my kitchen, 75 degrees constant all the time. I set up a fan that would blow on the GoPro from like maybe 3-4 feet away, and then I ran the tests again so that I would see like what is a real world. If I was walking around with this thing on a mount and I was using it mount, but I was actually moving through space and a lot of air was moving around the camera, what would that look like? How much would that change the numbers? Now remember before, at 5K 30, I got 24 minutes and 48 seconds before it shut down. This time on a mount with a little bit of airflow in the room, I got 49 minutes and 41 seconds. So over double the amount of time just because it was on a mount and there was some air. It was still 75 degrees. I kept the thermometer right there so I could make sure that the temperature wasn't changing because of the fan. 75 degrees, the exact same. There was just air moving in the room. Then remember last time at 5.3K 60, I got 15 minutes flat, and this time I got 24 minutes and 57 seconds before it overheated. That's a good big difference. Not double, but close to. Then last time at 4K 120, I got 13 minutes and 28 seconds. This time I got 17 minutes and 51 seconds. So obviously by a more real world test, something that looks like how you would actually use your GoPro, fingers down on a mount, actually have some airflow, quite a significant difference in how long this thing will run before that software kicks in and tells you it needs to cool down a little bit. So what does this all mean? Does this mean that overheating on the Hero 10 is not an issue? No, it totally is. Compared to all these cameras, the Hero 10 in all my tests shut down first, then the Hero 9, then the Hero 8, and these guys never shut down on me, but both of their LCD screens stopped working for me. So that's still something to take into consideration when making a purchasing decision, but there's a lot of benefits of this Hero 10. It can shoot at higher resolutions, it can shoot at higher frame rates. So having those last numbers in my mind is what I'm gonna use to decide when I'm going out to shoot something if this is the right tool for me. Again, 5.3K, I got almost 50 minutes of shooting before it shut down. I never use my GoPro like that, so I'm not worried. Like it's a bummer that any of these cameras would shut down, but again, very small cameras really struggle getting rid of that heat. So the more that we ask for them, the higher frame rates that we ask for them especially, it's just too much heat to keep running for a super long period of time. But I wanna know what you guys think of this. How are those numbers for you? Number one, do you film longer clips than that at the frame rates that I'm talking about? Then number two is do the pros of the Hero 10 outweigh the cons that it might overheat if you use it too much? And then lastly, just, I don't know, general thoughts on the Hero 10. What do you guys think of this? And the overheating issue especially, is Yeah, is this a real concern? Is this kind of a non-issue? Like, people tested it clearly wrong. I tested it wrong before I talked to them, and they were like, everyone's doing it wrong. No one uses their GoPro in their office flat on a desk with no airflow. Or at least I don't, unless I'm testing it, in which case, apparently I do, but I shouldn't. So yeah, if you do film for a long period of time on your GoPro, I hope this video helped you out. I hope it helps you make a purchasing decision. Clearly the 10 is maybe not the choice if you're that person. But for me, and I think most people, if I'm looking at just GoPros alone, take these completely out of the conversation, just GoPros alone, I would 100% say go for the Hero 10. Again though, if you're someone like me that shoots mostly shorter clips, because anything longer, I'm gonna do like a hyperlapse or a time lapse, and in that case, I didn't see overheating at any point. Okay, I hope this helped you guys out, and I'll see you guys soon. Accessories video coming very soon. I wonder if I could juggle. Oh, geez. GoPros. I can't.